Hello, my name is Miro Griffiths, and this video is exploring the importance of personal finances if you're a disabled person, and thinking through some important aspects such as accessing government funding, and of course the financial issues when you are engaging with your finances but you may be receiving personal assistance. A brief bit about me. So I live on the Wirral in Merseyside. I'm 32 years old at the time of recording. I've been engaged with Whizz-Kidz for many years. In fact, I was probably about 12 or 14 when I was engaged with the Kids Board. And I received a power chair off Whizz-Kidz when I was 16 years old, and I'm still using it today as well. It's the same chair many years later. My day-to-day job is that I'm a research fellow in disability studies at the School of Sociology and Social Policy at the University of Leeds. Disability studies is exploring what we call the social position of disabled people in society. So how do disabled people live their lives? What barriers do they experience on a daily basis? Why do those barriers occur? And how do we remove those barriers, but through changing the environment, changing people's attitudes, or making sure that there are good policies that will increase our participation and inclusion in society. So let me delve a little bit deeper now into the first area, which is thinking through accessing government support. Now, the key thing to say is that if you require support, you have a legal right to access support. You have the right to request and to be assessed for sufficient support. And that means support to do the things you want to do with your life, whether that's engaging with your studies, possibly engaging with work, or maybe just doing the things that you enjoy in your everyday life. So being part of your community, accessing leisure opportunities, accessing sport, or maybe just doing things that matter to you and that are really important to you. And there are different levels of funding and different ways in which you can access funding. So one way, for example, is through something called direct payments or personal budgets. Now, what that means is having direct funding provided to you as a way for you to control what you want to spend your support on. And providing it's not illegal, you do have a range of options in order to access good support. So, for example, for me, I employ a team of personal assistants. So they're not carers, because traditionally carers are often unpaid, or carers are people who may support decision making and have a little bit of control and authority over decision making. But I have complete control over how I want to live my life, as I should, and my PAs are there to assist me with the tasks that I need doing if I can't do that myself. So I employ a team of personal assistants, and I receive that through what's called continuing healthcare. And continuing healthcare is a pot of funding given to me from the health service, so from the Department of Health and Social Care. And it's organised by your local area, so what we call a local CCG. So if you're interested in accessing healthcare funding as a personal health budget, so you can control it, you can contact your doctor or your local health team if you're engaged with health professionals, and you can request what's called a continuing healthcare assessment. So if you are eligible for continuing healthcare, it then means that you can decide how to receive the money. So you may want to have that directly given to you. So I have a separate bank account where the money is given to me by the local health service, and then I am responsible for paying my personal assistants and managing employment issues associated with my staff. So that might be recruitment, retention, training issues, appraisals, and obviously when staff leave, helping them and assisting them to leave and pursue other career opportunities. But the key thing to think about when we talk about support is, on the one hand, you want to make sure you've got the right level of support so you can do the things that you want to do with your life. So about making sure you get sufficient support and it meets all your needs. but also that you get it in a way that is most comfortable and most appropriate for you. So the good thing about the level of support that we have on offer in the UK is that you can choose the amount of control you want over that support. It may be like me, you want to have complete control and manage every aspect of it. But if you don't, then you can access other types of services to help you manage your support. So it may be a local brokerage service who give you advice and give you guidance and control aspects of the day-to-day tasks associated with making sure that your support works. It may also be accessing things called payroll services, where they do all the calculations to tell you how much to pay your personal assistant or your support worker. You may want a case manager, somebody who will look after your case and talk to you on a regular basis to ensure that you are receiving the right level of support. And if your needs change, then you want to have the opportunity to make sure that you're reassessed for the right level of support. Now, frustratingly, accessing support can be quite difficult, and that's due to a range of issues that have happened in the UK. But the key thing is to make sure that if you feel that you should have support, and that you want support, that you are entitled to request it and to be assessed for it. So that might be for continuing healthcare and a personal health budget, but it may also be accessing support through social care and having maybe a personal budget or a direct payment for accessing social care support. Or it may be that you have some health needs and you have some social care needs. So you want to have what's called a joint budget, where you have some funding from health and some funding from social care as well. But of course, as you grow up and you do different things with your life, there may be other types of support that you need. So for example, when you go to work, if you want to work and you are able to work, then you can also access something called access to work. And what access to work does is give you either some funding for an assistant or some technological devices, or it may assist you with travel in order for you to be able to participate in work. Because the idea of access to work is to level the playing field. So to make sure that you are not disadvantaged when trying to compete with other applicants in order to secure employment. So rather than try to emphasize how you're going to minimize your needs as a way to try and get a position in employment, the point of access to work is to say, well, I've got these support needs and the government will help to pay for them and fund them so they don't fall onto the cost of the employer. So there are different ways to think about support and there are different pots to go for. Now, there are some important things when we come to thinking about financial issues with regards to accessing support. So it's important to stress that if you are accessing social care support, you may be required to pay for components of your care and support needs. So you may have what's called a financial assessment, where they determine the level of funding of income that you may receive, say through work or through other support schemes such as benefits or welfare. Or it may be that you already have some savings as well. So you need to make sure that you recognize the financial costs that you may incur when accessing support. So if it's social care, you may be asked to pay for aspects of your care. And that's because in the UK, we charge for social care. But if you are accessing healthcare funding and healthcare needs, you shouldn't be charged for that at all. That is not means tested, so it doesn't look at the existing level of finance that you have. It doesn't look at your savings. It doesn't look at what you receive on a monthly basis. That's because in the UK, healthcare funding is free at the point of use. So if you are receiving support for your healthcare needs, you shouldn't be asked to pay for any cost of that. And of course, access to work for employment, for giving you support to access work and employment, you don't, as the individual, have to pay for any aspects of that. Depending on the size of the company or organization that you're working for, you may have to pay, your company may pay for aspects of it, but you as an individual don't have to pay for it. And of course, when you have support, the things I was talking about before to help you manage your support, such as brokerage or advocacy or a case manager or payroll, those costs should be included within your support plan. so that you don't have to spend extra money in order to manage and maintain your level of support. So if that is happening, or you've got queries about the types of support you receive or the types of support you may want to have, then my advice is to speak to local disabled people's organizations. So these are, in short, are called DPOs. And what DPOs are organizations that are run and controlled by disabled people. So it's speaking to other people who may have similar experiences to the ones that you are having or that you're going to have. Or it may be about speaking to people who've gone through it already and have got some advice and guidance to give you and resources. So find out who your local disabled people's organization is in your area and make contact with them to ask them some questions about accessing support, keeping support, managing support, or maybe even employing support workers and personal assistants. And that brings me on to my last point around your managing your support alongside your own personal finances. And there are some important things to think about. So on the one hand, if you do want to take responsibility, all the responsibility for employing staff, you do need to be familiar with employment rules and what you're expected to do as an employer. Now that can sound quite daunting, but it's not really that daunting because you will be given a lot of support and guidance, or at least you should be, and you are entitled to ask for guidance in your role as an employer. But you do have to make sure that you are managing finances appropriately if you're controlling your support finances, and that might be keeping it in a separate bank account. It may also be making sure that you keep monthly statements, because things like audits, which is a word that means people will come and review and make sure that you're doing things appropriately. So you might have audits, so it's good to have all copies of paperwork and everything that you can show if ever requested. And also, when you're living your life on a daily basis, you want to make sure that your finances are being kept safe. So think about what's the best way to ensure that your money is safe and protected and that you have control over it, and that you don't have any precarious or dangerous situations where your finances or your passwords and so on may be accessed easily by other people. So, for example, I'm unable to take out my debit card or credit card and type in the PIN numbers. So what I do is I have what's called a buffer account. So I have another bank account where I transfer little pots of money, to maybe £50 to £100 if I'm doing a shop or if I'm buying something in particular. And that is the card that's used by my staff, because they then don't get access to the entirety of all my bank accounts and my passwords and so on. They only get access to one specific account that doesn't have a lot of money in it, and that I then just top up when I need to spend, spend money from my account. So you also want to think about how to ensure that you are keeping your personal details safe. And that is also something to think about when you are hiring support workers and personal assistants. So think about, when you're going to do interviews or when you're going to give people information about the roles and jobs, that you want to keep some level of control and confidentiality. So you may want to conduct your interviews in a public space rather than your home. You may want to talk to and find out if your PAs have any previous experience of supporting disabled people and how that was affected by collecting and holding sensitive data, such as financial accounts. The key thing is to have conversations, and if you have any worries or concerns, then please speak to other people who may have gone through the process. And again, as I suggest, speaking to disabled people's organizations or peer networks, or finding other disabled people in your local area who may also have had experiences of this. So, for example, if you're on the Wirral or if you're in Merseyside, you're more than welcome to speak to me. You can Google my name, Miro Griffiths, and you can find my contact details, and you can email me if you have any questions. But I hope that was useful, and I hope that gives you some idea of the types of support you may be able to access, but also some of the things that you need to think about when managing your own finances in line with making sure you receive the right level of support. So I'm going to stop there, and thanks for listening.